Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Scott Sambucci, author of Stop Hustling, Start Scaling, Ramp Up Your Start's Repeatable Revenue with the Q Framework. Scott, welcome to the show.
Dude, good to be here, Paul.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Dude, you nailed it.
All right, second time's the charm. Well, Scott, really happy to have you on the show. You ready to get started?
Let's do it, man.
All right, my friend. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
So the advice I would give to first-time authors, is the advice I give all the time to people is consider writing as a process, meaning that like I am a draft freak, meaning that I will do my first draft and it's just a huge brain dump. I'm almost feel like I'm like vomiting on the paper just to get ideas out. And I've learned to just get the ideas down and worry about structure and which of those ideas I'm going to keep and which ones I'm going to throw away later. So I do first draft is like literally as they say, the I don't know if I can curse, but the crappy first draft. Then I go back and start putting structure to the content. I almost write as if like the ideas become little post-it notes or modules on the page, and I'll just copy and paste and move paragraphs around, sentences around for second, third, fourth. I mean, I'll do as many as 6 or 7 drafts. I'm a little freakish on that. Most people don't do that much, but so my advice to people is like, don't worry. I think there's always this tendency like, well, how am I going to make this sentence perfect? Or how am I going to make this concept really, really clear? Don't worry about it. Just get going. And then let the writing lead you to how you're going to explain the concepts yourself. Don't worry about trying to explain them in the writing.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
The hardest part of getting published, I think, is really just the author taking action. I mean, it frankly is so easy. The barrier to entry to getting published is so easy now, whether you want to do it yourself and self-publish using Amazon or CreateSpace, or working with somebody like you or another professional that can help guide you through the process. I mean, I actually spent 7 years of my career in book publishing way back in the 90s and in the textbook world. And I mean, that world's a little bit different than professional publishing and novel writing and those kinds of things. But in the end, the whole process of getting published is so much easier now because the barrier to entry is really, really low. So it's really just a matter of getting over the fear that you might have about putting yourself out there, putting your work out there. Because once you hit publish and people start reading it, I have this fear all the time, whether it's a blog post or a book or even a video I'm doing on YouTube or LinkedIn. Like, man, is this good or not? What if it's not good? And I've just gotten to the point where just get it out there, because I believe in the message. I know what I do works. It works for our clients. It works for people that come to our workshops. It works for people that come to the webinar. And I just have faith that that message is good enough and it's going to help somebody, and that helps push me through the fear of just taking action.
Now, with your books, did you go through the indie route or did you go through a publisher?
Yeah, so the first 2 books, so my first book is called Startup Selling, How to Sell If You Really, Really Have to and Don't Know How. And I wrote that book, frankly, by accident, in that I was at a startup and started to hire and scale, manage a sales team. And so I just started dumping ideas into an Evernote file. Okay, I gotta teach these guys this stuff and I gotta teach them that. And I just started creating almost like a mini course for myself, just a brain dump to make sure I didn't forget things. And as I started putting ideas into the Evernote file, I realized like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of like a module. And then the modules, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a chapter. And I'd already been blogging for a couple of years, and I've always enjoyed writing. And I thought, well, I listened to and read a lot of, at the time I was reading a guy named James Altucher, and he was really pushing, this is going back to 2008, I guess, 2007, I forget exactly when, but, he was talking a lot about self-publishing and choose yourself. And I was reading that stuff, and he had this whole recipe, like how you can self-publish. So over Thanksgiving break, I was with some in-laws, and it was really bad weather, and there was nowhere to go in this condo that we rented. And I found a Starbucks down the street. I just got up super early every morning for a couple mornings in a row and started hammering out those first couple of, I turned those modules into chapters. I got like 3 chapters done in the first 4 days. Again, crappy first draft. But I was like, oh, there's something here. Like, I like this process, and it feels like this could be a book. And so within a month, I'd written the whole book. So by Christmas, it was done. I had my wife copy edit it, and then I went through CreateSpace and did all that stuff via Amazon. And so that was the first book process. The second book was more of a manufactured process in that because I'd been doing a lot of blogging and writing, especially on Quora, I had tons of answers to questions that I had just posted answers to over the years. And so I was like, well, this is pretty good content. People are upvoting it. They're telling me it's good content. They're telling me it's useful. And maybe instead of having it scattered across Quora where people have to search and find it, what if I just took the answers to these questions and just grouped them into categories? Okay, these are customer success or customer development questions. These are product demo questions. These are lead generation questions. These are what to do at conference questions. And I kind of took all my answers to different questions and just piled them up. And I was like, oh, there's like 30 or 40, essentially chapters are just, it's like a question answer framework. And then I ended up adding a few more questions to the book that I just answer over and over with clients. And so it came up with 52 sales questions answered is the name of that book. And again, I self-published it just because I had the frameworks in place about a year later. So that was less of a like start from scratch, I'm going to build this book, and more of just taking content I already built and repurposing it and organizing it in a way to make it more useful to people that might want it. So those are the first 2 books. And then the third book, I went through a third party that's helped me to, do the draft. They do all the copy editing, and then they're going to help me market it down the road.
Nice. Do you mind sharing who that is, or is that more confidentiality?
Yeah, no, for sure. No. It's called Bestseller Publishing.
Rob.
Rob Cosberg. Yeah, I know a lot of people know Rob. I know him from a mastermind group that he and I are both a part of. And the reason I chose to work in that fashion instead of self-publishing was I wanted to try writing and publishing it in a different way. So their process is very different than your writer sits down in front of a keyboard and types. A lot of it is verbal communication and then transcription and then putting that into a manuscript format. I've actually found for me, it didn't quite work as well. For me, it generated even more work than writing from scratch, all things considered, because I've found that my writing style, even though my tone and my audience and my message is the same, my writing style is different than my verbal style. And so translating verbal writing directly into written word just didn't reflect what I wanted to see. I'm sure it was fine and would have been okay, except that when I published this book, the Stop Hustling, Start Scaling book, I want it to be I want it to be top, my best work. And sometimes that's even hindered me to slow me down in getting it published. It's been a couple of years from start to finish, and perfect is the enemy at done sometimes. But in this case, I really did want to make sure that the book was as good as it could be. So that's kind of the story on the third book.
Good. I'm glad you went with Rob. I had the pleasure to meet him, around a year and a half ago. Just a great guy. I love his systems and processes. So I'm glad you're going with him. I'll be curious to see how it ends up. So definitely looking forward to when that's coming out. When is it going to come out?
Me too. I mean, it's scheduled right now. We have the final draft completed. We're working on the book cover and all those kinds of things. So it should be out end of Q1 2019, early Q2. Some of the things I haven't had a chance to finish up just because of schedules and calendar. We have a big client event that we do every January that's coming up 2 weeks from, less than a week actually, from the time that we're recording this. And so that's just been a huge block of time and effort. So once I get through that, I'll be able to polish up, get the rest of the project management stuff done, and then start the publishing, the actual publishing and marketing machine that goes behind getting that book out. So that's why I'm aiming towards March or April.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
So I haven't done the book launch with Bestseller Publishing yet, so I'm kind of curious to see, because they'll do things that I haven't done in the past. What we, as a team here at Sales Qualia and our marketing team, has done with the previous books, The Start of Selling and 52 Sales Questions Answered, I've always treated the book as a marketing piece itself. Like, I don't publish books looking to buy an island in Fiji with the royalties. I mean, it's just not. Very few of us are Stephen King and that caliber type of author where you're just going to make a living just from the writing. I've always treated the book as a way to share expertise, give it, like, overload people with value, and then use that as an entry point for conversations with potential and future clients. And so in that vein, while we have the book available for sale on Amazon, people can get the hard copy or the Kindle, we've actually used excerpts of the book, and we'll do posts inside of LinkedIn. And we'll just say, for example, one of the chapters in the book is about selling at conferences, which I know is something that a lot of companies struggle with. And so we'll take a couple of paragraphs out of the book, put it into a LinkedIn post, and then at the bottom of the post say, this is an excerpt from Startup Selling. If you'd like to grab a copy, click here. And then from LinkedIn, we take them to a landing page where they can actually download a free PDF version of the book. And so the PDF is useful, and a lot of people read PDFs. It's sort of it turns out to be kind of an old style ebook. And sometimes people will then go buy the Kindle version or the hard copy and things like that, which, again, I don't really care about sales as much as distribution. And so taking that process of showing excerpts, giving value, then getting people to download a copy, I've found in our own marketing and sales funnel that frequently, 3-4 months after somebody's downloaded the book, and now because they've downloaded the book, they've been in our marketing list getting other content from me, whether it's blog posts or webinars or videos. That sequence of other content, using the book as kind of the tip of the spear, then gets people to the point where they're like, hey, I've been following your stuff. I've been reading your stuff for a few months. It's really great. Could I talk to you to see if I'd be a good fit for your program? And so the book, in a lot of ways, has been, a way to just give people a huge amount of value up front, introduce them to me at their pace, because they get to read the book whenever they want to read it. It's not me talking to them in a webinar or me talking to them in a workshop or me talking to them on a sales call. Just like, here's the book. This is the way I roll. This is the way I explain things. This is the way that I teach people how to do sales. And that in itself, I've had lots of people after they've become clients say, like, man, your book is really a great way to get to know you as a person and your style and the way you go about it. And so that process of just frankly giving the book away, using the excerpt on LinkedIn has been really, really effective for us.
Well, and not only that, you took it next level. You didn't just post an excerpt. You also included the link where they can get more information, where they can get to the landing page. That is what takes this next level.
Yeah, and a big credit to our marketing person, Julian, for kind of figuring that out. I mean, this wasn't something I thought up. He just did some research and saw what other people were doing, and he kind of put that funnel together for us. And he's like, okay, this is what I did. I was like, okay, cool. And it's kind of fun. Like every day or so, in our inbox, we'll see, so-and-so downloaded copy of Startup Selling, so-and-so downloaded copy of 52 Sales Questions Answered. And that also kicks off a whole nother set of marketing sequence, because we use Active Campaign. So when somebody joins our email list, then we drip out kind of in the first couple of weeks, like the first 2 weeks, we send them out like 5 or 6 emails where they get to indoctrinate them a little bit more about, here's a video about, how why I started my company. And here's a link to a recorded webinar that I've done. And here's a link to a live webinar I'm going to be doing next week. And just giving people lots of opportunities that the people that want to engage more we just open the door and let them decide whether or not they want to walk through that door or not. And that's really been a big contributor. So the book gives us authority voice in the market, and it helps to kind of separate you from, blog posts and LinkedIn posts and Quora posts, because there's lots and lots of stuff out there. And there's always this sort of in people's mind, like, oh, you have a book, and it's just a lot different in their mind versus a single blog post.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Oh man, I've got a lot of favorite books. And so I'll if I could share a couple, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So one book I keep going back to, I read about a year or two ago, is a book by a guy named Greg McKeown called Essentialism. And the premise of the book, you could sort of get the gist of it just by the title, but his whole, theory behind the book is just focusing on one thing at a time. And running a business, there's 20 things pulling at you every day, and there's lots of shiny red objects to go after, whether it's on the marketing side or new customers to go after or new ways to provide value to your clients. And I constantly remind myself of a diagram he has in his book where it's just a circle with arrows sticking out in a bunch of different directions, and the arrows just kind of protrude from the circle and like maybe a little tiny bit. And the point he's making is like, well, you could run in a lot of directions and make a little bit of progress in 5 or 6 or 7 different directions. But what if you took all of that effort and just aligned all of those arrows in one direction? And then he's got a second graphic that shows the circle with this arrow that goes out like, half the page. And it's just like visually, you're like, yes, that's exactly what I feel like every day. I'm making incremental progress in lots of directions, but I'm not really making a lot of progress in one direction. And so I keep going back to that book over and over and over. So that's one book that's been really impactful for me, and one I've shared with a lot of people. A couple of other, I would say, like authors in general, just in terms of running my company and thinking about ways to run my company. There's an author named Michael Michalowicz. One of his books is called Clockwork, which is, he calls it Designing Your Business to Run Itself. And it just teaches you how to build systems. And that's been really effective in running my company. And he also wrote a book called Profit First, which is looking at how to run the finances of your company. So those are, he's been a really impactful author on me the last year. Two more books. Sorry, I just have like a lot of books. Joey Coleman, Never Lose a Customer Again. Super book. And then there's a book by a guy named Keith Cunningham. I can't remember the name of it exactly. But definitely check out Keith Cunningham. If you're running a business, he's an excellent author on how to run your business the right way. So those are a couple authors and books that are top of mind for me right now.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote and why? Oh man, I got a lot of those too. And something that's been more recent than anything for me is something that I heard from a guy named Jocko Willink, who's a former Navy SEAL, and he's got his own podcast and he's written some books. And it's simply one word: good. Meaning that when whatever happens to you, your first response should be good. Meaning that let's figure out how we can turn this situation into something positive. So, I have one of my team members who is going to be moving into another position. She's got this awesome offer to work with a previous client. She's been freelancing with me for a while. And I was like, I got this, talking to her, I'm like super bummed about this because she's awesome. And I loved working with her. And then I remembered this quote and I said to myself, okay, good. Like, what's good about this? What is this going to force me to do? What is this going to force me to look at? What is this going to force me to take a certain action on that I haven't thought about before? So as a forcing function with her exiting, like, I can't change that. I can't change her decision. I'd try to keep her, and I have. But if that's the reality of the situation, then let's not wallow in our tears and whine about it and complain about it. Let's just look at it and go, okay, what's good about this? how am I going to be better? What do I have to figure out now? And so that very simple mindset that Jocko Willink talks about, like good, has been really useful for me as I'm, the last couple of months with things happening in the business and things I'm learning, and as we're growing and expanding the team and all these other things, just constantly reminder, like, just take that approach. Good.
Scott, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I think single best way would be go to LinkedIn. So Scott, S-C-O-T-T, Sambucci. Sambucci is spelled S-A-M-B-U-C-C-I. I only say I say that simply because I have an email address. People, you're welcome to send me an email if you want to. I just don't check email every so often. I only check emails very often. Every so often, my assistant does it for me. But if people want to shoot me an email, it's Scott, S-C-O-T-T, at salesqualia, Q-U-A-L-I-A.com. But I'm on LinkedIn all the time, posting stuff there all the time. If you want to shoot me a message or connect with me there, we can strike up a conversation. And if there's something I can do to help out your audience, I'd be happy to do it.
Scott, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Cool. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It's good talking to you. Good catching up, Paul.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.